Have you been wondering if leadership is even that great? Perhaps you think you want a leadership job, and then you watch your manager acting all stressed out, not really having any friends at work because they're the boss, staying later some nights because they've got something they have to get done, and you think, jeepers, am I really cut out for that? Do I really want that responsibility and stress in my life? Well, today is an honest reflection on leadership and the reality so that you can decide if leadership is really for you. If you have seen the polished image of leadership, charismatic speeches, effortless decision making, and success, then I'm sorry, but in my experience, leadership is often messy, challenging, and far from glamorous. If you are aspiring to lead or already in the trenches, this is for you. Firstly, it's pretty lonely and possibly more than you imagine. You will no doubt be surrounded by a lot of other people every day, but the reality is you're often a bit of a loner. You will be on the outside a bit. Well, if you're maintaining professional boundaries, which I highly recommend. You can't be getting in amongst it all and laughing and joking all the time, particularly if your workplace is one that is focused on productivity and work planning, as that is pretty distracting and you seriously cannot be a successful leader and everyone's friend. I have done a video on this because I think it is very important to be aware of this boundary. We've all seen those leaders who joke around and act like everyone's friend, mixing boundaries and really acting like more of a colleague than a boss. While that might be easier and more fun, it is really counterintuitive. Have you ever tried to hold one of your friends to account for behaviors or actions? Yep, pretty uncomfortable and likely to be a very last resort if you actually want to maintain that friendship. That does not make for a great workplace environment. Holding people accountable and ensuring that behaviors, productivity, and engagement are all balanced is a pretty tough job. But imagine if you were doing this with all of your mates in the team. So, if you have appropriate workplace boundaries in place as a leader, you are probably going to feel a little bit isolated. There will be times where you just have to bite your tongue and sit back. That could mean not laughing at the joke that was pretty funny but also kind of inappropriate. It could mean not getting engaged in the conversation that people are having about what they're watching on TV. It could mean just picking your battles and deciding that you're not going to say anything because it's not a fight worth having. There will also be times where your team will be outraged by something that you are also outraged by and you want to vent with them, but you cannot because the situation could be something that is an organisational decision that you need to support in your role. This causes a level of isolation that is quite difficult to be prepared for. Another thing that is quite isolating is YouTube. I make videos, I post them, and sometimes there's no feedback, comments, likes, subscribers. So if you really want to make me feel less isolated on YouTube, I'd love it if you would subscribe or comment or like. That would be amazing. Thanks. Point 2 in the realities of leadership is that failure is inevitable and it's public. You will fail. It is not an if, it is a when. And unlike individual failures, leadership failures are usually seen by more than one person. You'll be held accountable and sometimes you'll be the scapegoat. Whatever you do, don't try and blame others for mistakes. How you handle yourself during this time is crucial, and often being the leader means taking the hit and being blamed even when it wasn't your fault. There'll be times when a project doesn't go to plan and you need to reset. If there are individuals that contributed to that reason of failure, then do not make this public. Do not shame them. The right way to reset a project that's under your leadership is to talk about why you're resetting in general, not the individuals that cause the reset. It's also important to include your own accountability for the reasons. People need to trust you, particularly if you are resetting a project, as that means getting them on board with a whole new thing. So make sure that you're not smoothing over your responsibility in any kind of failure or mistake. If you need to have difficult conversations with people who contributed to it, do this outside of any team conversation, privately, one-on-one, and be clear about what it is that you want to say to them. Don't do it in a desperate way to try and take heat off yourself in public. Do this right and you'll come across as dignified and trustworthy. When things go wrong, even if it was not directly your fault, you'll likely bear the brunt of the blame. And that's one of the prices of leadership. You have to protect your team, even when it hurts, and even when you've done everything right, you might still take the blame for things going wrong. That is the reality of leadership sometimes. Point 3 is that it's quite hard to find the off switch in leadership. Unfortunately, leadership often isn't a 9-to-5 job, and it can tend to creep in unexpected ways. You might be thinking about work during dinner because you've got something that is really annoying you that you know you need to solve, or something that is really worrying you that you know you need to solve. It's hard to turn the brain off in those situations. You might also find yourself having to reconsider social arrangements as you discover that a whole lot of members of your team are going to the same party as you. And you know that is not going to be relaxing. It's actually going to be like work, because even though you're outside of the workplace, your actions and behaviours can come back to haunt you at work if you are unprofessional. So it isn't just that as you grow in your leadership, you're trying to separate your personal life from your private life in your own head so that you can sleep at night. It's also that you might be trying to navigate on your own time, avoiding work talk so that you can relax, and having to make alternative choices about where you do that. You could also find in a leadership role that you're more likely to be contacted outside of work too, as there are sometimes emergencies that become a leadership problem in the weekend. The boundaries between work and your personal life will get blurry, and it is super important that you navigate how you're going to manage this really quickly, or you will burn out. And finally, the biggest truth, leadership is not about power and control. It's about serving others. It's about empowering your team, fostering their growth, and putting their needs before your own. It's kind of like having kids. If you are only in it for the ego boost, I would say that that is probably the wrong reason. The best leaders work hard to elevate the people around them, not themselves. So, brutal truth, leadership is hard. You have to watch how you act and what you say. You have to take responsibility for the mistakes of your team. You need to learn to switch off and save your own sanity and that of your family. And it's pretty damn lonely at times, particularly when things are tough. So if you're wanting to be a leader or considering if leadership is for you, be prepared for this reality and the fact that everyone is watching. So make sure you check out the video linked in your screen all about that, and let me know in the comments what you think the most brutal truth is about leadership. And thanks very much for watching till the very end.